The ship had been falling apart when they captured it. Commander Jake Harris remembered the smell of burning metal and the sound of alarms screaming through the corridors. He remembered his crew fighting to keep the engines running, while enemy weapons tore through the hull like paper. Now he stood in chains, surrounded by aliens who looked at him like he was nothing more than an insect. The Volanthi Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and enslaved dozens of species. When they found a small human exploration vessel drifting near their territory, they did not ask questions. They simply took what they wanted. Jake looked around the grand arena. It was massive, larger than any stadium on Earth. Thousands of Volanthi sat in the stands, their dark eyes watching with cruel interest. They had purple and black skin that looked like polished stone. Each one stood at least 8 feet tall, and they had 4 arms instead of 2. Their mouths were full of sharp teeth, and their bodies were built for killing. Humans, by comparison, looked soft and weak. Jake knew this. Every species in the galaxy knew this. Humans were small. Humans were fragile. Humans came from a planet with low gravity and mild temperatures. They were not warriors. They were not predators. They were prey, at least. That was what everyone believed. Jake's crew stood in a holding cell at the edge of the arena. Lieutenant Kate Murphy pressed her face against the energy bars, her eyes fixed on her commander. Sergeant Ben Collins stood beside her, his hands clenched into fists. Their pilot, Danny Webb, sat on the floor with his head in his hands. There were 12 of them in total. 12 humans captured during what was supposed to be a peaceful mission. They had been exploring new star systems, looking for planets that might support life. They had not expected to find an empire that saw them as toys. A horn sounded across the arena, deep and loud. The crowd fell silent. Jake watched as a platform descended from the ceiling. On it stood a female Volanthi unlike any he had seen before. She wore armor made of gold and silver, and jewels hung from her neck and wrists. Her eyes were bright red, not dark like the others. She was younger, smaller, but she carried herself like someone who had never lost at anything in her life. Princess Zerithia, youngest daughter of Emperor Valdros. Jake had heard the guards talking about her. She was famous throughout the Empire for her skill in combat. She had killed over 100 opponents in this arena, and she had never received a single wound. The princess stepped off the platform and walked toward Jake. Her forearms moved with perfect grace. Her feet made no sound on the stone floor. She stopped 10 feet away from him and tilted her head, studying him like a cat studying a mouse. "So this is a human," she said. Her voice was smooth and cold. "I have heard stories about your kind. Weak, slow, fragile. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears like wet cloth. You cannot survive in cold or heat. You need to eat and drink constantly just to stay alive." Jake said nothing. He kept his eyes on her, watching the way she moved, the way she breathed. Zerithia smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "My father has given you to me as a gift." He thought it would be amusing to watch a human try to fight. He said it would be like watching a child play with a trained warrior. The crowd laughed. The sound echoed through the arena like thunder. "The rules are simple," the princess continued. "We fight until one of us draws blood. First blood wins. If you win, you and your crew go free. If I win, you all become slaves of the Empire forever." Kate gripped the bars of her cell tighter. "He can't do this," she whispered. "They can't make him fight. This isn't fair." Ben put a hand on her shoulder. "The commander knows what he's doing. He has to." In the arena, a guard approached Jake and removed his chains. Another guard brought a table covered with weapons. There were swords, knives, spears, and clubs of all sizes. Jake looked at them carefully, then picked up a simple short blade. It was light and easy to handle. Zerethia laughed. That tiny thing? You could stab me 100 times, and I would not feel it. Here, let me show you a real weapon. She walked to her own weapons rack and selected a curved sword that was longer than Jake was tall. The blade was black and covered with strange symbols. When she moved it through the air, it hummed with power. This sword has killed 63 warriors, she said proudly. Your blood will make it 64. Jake rolled his shoulders and stretched his neck. He bounced lightly on his feet, feeling the ground beneath him. The floor was stone, solid and flat. Good for movement. Good for quick changes in direction. You'll die in a minute, human, Zerethia announced, raising her voice so the whole arena could hear. Maybe less. I will try to make it quick, but I cannot promise anything. Pain is part of the entertainment. The crowd cheered. They stomped their feet and clapped their 4 hands together. The noise was deafening. Jake finally spoke. His voice was calm and steady. A minute is a long time, princess. Zerethia's smile faded slightly. She had expected fear. She had expected begging. Instead, she saw something in the human's eyes that she did not understand. It was not bravery, exactly. It was something deeper. Something patient? What did you say? She asked. I said a minute is a long time. Jake raised his blade and settled into a fighting stance. A lot can happen in a minute. People can live entire lifetimes in a minute. Wars can be won in a minute. The whole universe can change in a minute. The princess stared at him. For just a moment, something cold touched her heart. It was not fear, because she did not know how to feel fear. But it was close. You are strange, she said quietly. Most creatures beg for mercy when they stand before me. Most creatures cry and scream and try to run. But you just stand there, looking at me like you know something I do not. Jake smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad, but real. Maybe I do. A gong sounded. The fight had begun. Zerethia exploded forward with speed that no human eye should have been able to follow. Her sword cut through the air, aimed directly at Jake's throat. But Jake was not where she expected him to be. He had ducked low and rolled to the side, coming up 3 feet to her left. His movement was smooth and controlled, like water flowing around a stone. The princess spun, her eyes wide with surprise. She struck again, faster this time, putting all 4 of her arms into the attack. The blade whistled through empty air. Jake was already gone, stepping back, circling to her right. The crowd fell silent. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Kate pressed closer to the bars, her heart pounding in her chest. How is he doing that? She breathed. How is he moving that fast? Ben shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving the arena. He's not moving fast. He's moving smart. He's reading her. He's seeing her attacks before she makes them. In the arena, Zerethia attacked again and again. Each strike was faster and more powerful than the last. Each strike was meant to kill, and each strike missed. Jake moved like a ghost, always just beyond her reach. He did not attack. He did not try to wound her. He simply watched and waited and survived. Sweat began to form on the princess's brow. Her breathing grew heavy. Her muscles began to burn, and still the human danced around her, untouched and unafraid. 1 minute passed. Jake was still standing. He had not been scratched. The arena was completely silent now. Every Volanthe stared at the human with disbelief painted across their alien faces. This was impossible. This could not be happening. But it was, and it was only the beginning. The silence in the arena was heavy and strange. The Volanthe had come to see blood. They had come to watch a weak little human die screaming on the floor. Instead, they watched something that made no sense to their minds. the human was still alive. More than that, the human was not even breathing hard. Princess Zerithia stood in the center of the arena, her chest heaving, her forearms trembling with effort. She had attacked the human over 30 times in the first minute. Each attack had been fast enough to kill a trained warrior. Each attack had found nothing but empty air. How? She hissed through her teeth. How are you doing this? Jake continued to circle her slowly. His movements were calm and measured. He held his short blade loosely in his hand, not threatening, just ready. His eyes never left the princess, watching every tiny movement she made. Your species evolved as ambush predators, Jake said. His voice was steady and quiet. You hide, you wait, you strike. One attack, one kill. Your bodies are built for short bursts of speed and power. You are like a tiger or a snake. Zerithia lunged again, putting all her strength into a downward cut that would have split a normal opponent in half. Jake stepped sideways and let the blade pass within inches of his shoulder. He did not flinch. He did not panic. He simply moved. But my species evolved differently, Jake continued, as if nothing had happened. We were not ambush predators. We were persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? The princess attacked again, a series of quick slashes aimed at his chest and legs. Jake moved through them like he was dancing, each step precisely where it needed to be. It means we did not catch our prey by being faster or stronger, Jake explained. We caught them by following, by watching, by waiting. We would chase an animal across miles and miles of open land. We would track it for hours, sometimes days. The animal would run and run until its body gave out. And we would still be there, walking behind it, never stopping. In the holding cell, Kate Murphy watched with her heart in her throat. She had served with Commander Harris for 3 years. She had seen him fight before, in bar brawls and training sessions, and one very bad situation on a mining colony. But she had never seen him like this. He was completely focused, completely calm, like the fight was already over, and he was just waiting for everyone else to realize it. He's playing with her, Sergeant Ben Collins muttered in disbelief. He's not even trying to win yet. He's just letting her tire herself out. Danny Webb looked up from the floor, hope flickering in his eyes. Can he really do that? Can he really beat her just by waiting? Ben nodded slowly. Humans are the best endurance hunters in the known galaxy. We can run for hours without stopping. Our bodies are designed to get rid of heat through sweat. Most predator species can only sprint for a few minutes before they overheat. But we can keep going forever. In the arena, Zerithia was starting to understand. Her attacks were becoming slower, less precise. The fire in her muscles was spreading, turning into pain. She had never fought for this long before. She had never needed to. What are you? She demanded. What kind of creature are you? Jake stopped moving and met her eyes. I am human. I am a member of a species that crossed oceans on wooden boats because we wanted to see what was on the other side. I am a member of a species that climbed the highest mountains and explored the deepest caves just to prove that we could. I am a member of a species that looked at the empty darkness of space and said we would fill it with our children. He raised his blade slightly. You think I am weak because I am small and soft. You think I am prey because I do not have claws or fangs or armor. But you do not understand what makes a predator. A true predator does not need to be strong. A true predator only needs to be patient. Zerithia screamed in rage and charged at him. Her movements were wild now, desperate. She swung her massive sword in great arcs, trying to catch him with the sheer size of her attacks. Jake moved through the storm like wind through leaves. He ducked under one strike, stepped over another, twisted away from a third. His feet barely seemed to touch the ground. The crowd began to murmur. They had never seen anything like this. Their princess, their undefeated champion, was being humiliated by a creature they considered barely above an animal. Emperor Valdros sat on his throne high above the arena, his ancient eyes fixed on the human. He was the oldest Volante alive, over 400 years old. He had seen countless battles, countless warriors, countless species. He had never seen anything move the way this human moved. "Interesting," he said quietly. None of his advisors heard him dot down in the arena. 3 minutes had passed. Zerethia was gasping for air. Her golden armor felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her arms shook so badly that she could barely hold her sword. "Why won't you die?" she screamed. "Why won't you just die like you're supposed to?" Jake stopped moving and stood perfectly still. He was not even breathing hard. His face was calm, almost peaceful. "Because I don't want to," he said simply. "And that is something you do not understand. Humans do not give up. We do not surrender. We do not accept death quietly. Every cell in our bodies is programmed to survive, to adapt, to overcome. You have faced warriors who were faster than me, stronger than me, more skilled than me. But you have never faced someone who simply refuses to lose." Zerethia raised her sword for another attack, but her arms would not obey her. The blade was too heavy. Her muscles were burning. She had never felt so weak, so helpless. Kate gripped the bars of her cell with white knuckles. "He's doing it," she whispered. "He's actually doing it." Ben nodded. The commander always had a saying: "Fight smart, not hard." Every enemy has a weakness. You just have to find it and wait. In the arena, Jake began to walk toward the princess. His steps were slow and deliberate. He was not rushing. He was not afraid. He was simply moving forward, like a tide that could not be stopped. "Here is what is going to happen," Jake said quietly, so only she could hear. "You are going to drop that sword. You are going to fall to your knees. And I am going to draw first blood." Zerethia tried to speak, tried to deny him, but she had no breath left for words. "It does not have to hurt," Jake continued. "I can make it quick and clean. A small cut on your palm, just enough to end the match. You can tell everyone that I got lucky. You can say that you slipped, or that your sword was damaged, or whatever story helps you sleep at night. I do not care about your pride. I only care about my crew." He stopped 5 feet away from her. His eyes were hard but not cruel. "Or you can keep fighting until you collapse. Until your heart gives out and your lungs burn dry. Until your body breaks down and you cannot move anymore. And then I will draw first blood anyway, and everyone will see that you were beaten by a human. Not by luck, not by tricks, but by pure, stubborn, human endurance." Zerethia stared at him. Her red eyes were wide with something she had never felt before. It took her a moment to recognize it. Fear. She, who had killed 100 warriors, who had bathed in the blood of champions, who had never known defeat, was afraid of this small, soft creature from a primitive world. 4 minutes had passed. The princess's sword clattered to the ground. Her knees buckled, and she fell. And Jake Harris stood over her, patient as stone, waiting to end the match. The arena was silent as death. Thousands of Volante sat frozen in their seats, unable to believe what their eyes were showing them. Their beloved princess, their undefeated champion, was on her knees before a human. A human, the weakest species in the known galaxy. Jake Harris stood before her, his small blade held loosely at his side. He had not moved for several seconds. He was giving her time to catch her breath, time to think, time to accept what was happening. Princess Zerethia looked up at him from the floor. Her red eyes burned with shame and anger, but beneath it, Jake could see understanding beginning to form. She was smart. She was starting to figure out how badly she had underestimated him. "You planned this," she said, her voice raspy from exhaustion. "From the very beginning. You never intended to match my speed or strength. You knew you could not. So you turned the fight into something else. You turned it into a test of endurance." Jake nodded. "Every battle has two parts. The physical part and the mental part. You won the physical part before we even started. You are faster, stronger, and more skilled than I will ever be. But I won the mental part the moment you announced that I would die in a minute." ZiRhithia frowned, not understanding. "How is that winning?" "Because you believed it," Jake said. "You believed this fight would be quick and easy. You did not prepare for a long battle. You did not save your energy. You burned everything you had in those first few minutes, trying to kill me as fast as possible. You fought like someone who thought victory was guaranteed." He crouched down so that he was at her eye level. "But I fought like someone who knew he might lose. I fought like someone who had everything to lose and nothing to gain except survival. Every step I took, every dodge, every breath was carefully measured. I wasted nothing." The crowd began to murmur. They could not hear what the human was saying, but they could see the princess listening. They could see her nodding slowly, like a student learning from a teacher. In the holding cell, Kate Murphy allowed herself to breathe for the first time in minutes. "He's got her," she said quietly. "It's over." Sergeant Ben Collins shook his head. "Not yet. She still has to bleed. I don't think the commander is going to force it." Kate looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" "He has to finish the match. That's the only way we go free." "Yeah," Ben agreed. "But the commander is not just fighting for our freedom. He's fighting for something bigger. He's trying to change how they see us. If he just cuts her while she's down, he's just a clever animal that got lucky. But if she surrenders to him, if she admits that he beat her fair and square, that's different. That means something." Down in the arena, Jake stood back up and offered his hand to the princess. "Can you stand?" ZiRhithia stared at his hand like it was something alien and strange. No opponent had ever offered her help before. When you lost in the arena, you were expected to die with whatever dignity you had left. You did not receive kindness. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you help me? I tried to kill you. I called you weak and worthless. I treated you like an animal." Jake smiled gently. "Because that is what humans do. We help people, even people who hurt us, even enemies. It is not always smart, and it is not always easy, but it is who we are." Slowly, hesitantly, ZiRhithia took his hand. Jake pulled her to her feet and steadied her when she wobbled. The crowd gasped. Some of them stood up from their seats. This was unheard of. This broke every rule of combat they knew. Emperor Valdros leaned forward on his throne, his eyes narrowing. His advisors whispered frantically in his ears, but he waved them away. He wanted to see what would happen next. Jake stepped back and raised his blade again. "The match is not over yet. I still need to draw first blood, but I want to give you a choice." ZiRhithia watched him warily. "What choice?" "You can continue fighting. I will not stop you. We can do this for another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes, however long it takes. You will lose, but at least you can say you never gave up." He paused. "Or you can end this now. You can accept that you lost, and you can let me draw blood without a fight. It will be quick and painless. A small cut on your palm. No one needs to die today." The princess looked down at her sword lying on the ground. She thought about picking it up. She thought about fighting until her last breath, dying with honor like a true Volanti warrior. But then she thought about what the human had said. About persistence. About patience. About refusing to give up. If she kept fighting, she would lose. That much was certain. But worse than that, She would prove that the Volante could not learn. She would prove that her species was too proud and too stubborn to admit when they had been beaten. Slowly, HFY extended her hand, palm up, toward Jake. "Do it," she said quietly. "Draw your blood. End this match." Jake nodded respectfully. He pressed the edge of his blade against her palm, just hard enough to break the skin. A thin line of violet blood appeared, dripping down her fingers and falling to the stone floor. The gong sounded. The match was over. For a moment, nobody moved. The crowd sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what had just happened. Their princess had lost to a human, and she had surrendered willingly. Then Kate Murphy started to laugh. It was a wild, relieved sound that echoed through the holding cell. Ben Collins joined her, and then Danny Webb, and soon all 12 humans were laughing and crying and hugging each other. "We're going home," Kate said, tears streaming down her face. "We're actually going home." In the arena, Jake lowered his blade and bowed to the princess. It was a small gesture, but it meant something. He was showing her respect, acknowledging her strength, honoring her decision to end the fight with dignity. HFY bowed back, wincing at the pain in her muscles. Every part of her body ached. She had never been so exhausted in her life. "You are not what I expected, human," she said quietly. "I thought you would gloat. I thought you would mock me and celebrate your victory." Jake shook his head. "I did not come here to humiliate you. I came here to save my crew. You gave them their freedom. For that, I am grateful." The princess looked at the small cut on her palm. Such a tiny wound. Such a simple thing. But it had cost her everything she thought she knew about the universe. "Will you answer a question?" she asked. Jake nodded. Double quotes. "How did you know? How did you know that you could beat me?" Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain. Finally, he spoke. "I did not know. Not for certain. But I believed. That is what humans do. We believe in impossible things. We dream impossible dreams. And sometimes, when we believe hard enough and fight hard enough, the impossible becomes possible." He looked up at the sky above the arena, at the strange stars of an alien world. "My ancestors were told that humans could never cross the oceans. We built ships and crossed them anyway. We were told that humans could never fly. We built planes and flew anyway. We were told that humans could never reach the stars. We built rockets and reached them anyway." He looked back at the princess. "When you told me I would die in a minute, you were just one more voice telling me that something was impossible. And I am human. Impossible is what we do." The arena was silent. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Volante began to wonder if maybe they did not know everything after all. The Volante began to all. The arena began to empty slowly. The Volante moved in silence, their dark eyes avoiding each other. No one knew what to say. No one knew how to feel. Their world had just shifted beneath their feet, and they were still trying to find their balance. Guards came to the holding cell and opened the doors. Kate Murphy stepped out first, her legs shaking with relief. Ben Collins followed close behind, one hand on her shoulder to steady her. Danny Webb and the rest of the crew filed out after them, blinking in the strange light of the alien sun. "Commander!" Kate called out, running toward Jake. She threw her arms around him and held on tight, not caring who was watching. "You did it. You actually did it." Jake hugged her back, allowing himself one moment of weakness. His body was tired. His mind was tired. He had spent every second of that fight calculating, planning, watching. It was exhausting in a way that physical combat could never be. "We're not safe yet," he said quietly. "The Emperor has to honor the agreement. Until we're on a ship heading home, we're still prisoners." Ben nodded, looking around at the guards who surrounded them. They were not pointing weapons, but they were not exactly friendly either. What do? We wait, Jake said. And we stay calm. No matter what happens, we stay calm. Princess Zerithia approached them, walking slowly on legs that still trembled with exhaustion. Medical drones hovered around her, trying to treat her wounds, but she waved them away. Her eyes were fixed on Jake. My father wishes to see you, she said. All of you. Kate tensed. Is that good or bad? Zerithia hesitated before answering. I do not know. My father is very old. He has seen many things. He does not react the way other Volanti do. He might honor the agreement. He might not. With him, it is impossible to say. Jake stepped forward. Then let's not keep him waiting. The guards led them through massive corridors carved from purple stone. The walls were covered with paintings and carvings showing the history of Volanti Empire. Jake saw images of battles, conquests, and celebrations. He saw alien species bowing before Volanti rulers. He saw planets burning and fleets of ships darkening the stars. 10,000 years of conquest. 10,000 years of believing they were the greatest species in the galaxy. They reached a great hall at the heart of the palace. The ceiling was so high that Jake could barely see it. Pillars of crystal rose from the floor like frozen waterfalls. And at the far end, sitting on a throne made of black metal, was Emperor Valdros. He was the largest Volanti Jake had ever seen. Even sitting down, he towered over everyone else in the room. His body was covered with scars, each one a mark of a battle he had survived. His eyes were deep purple, almost black, and they held a weight that came from centuries of wisdom. Jake walked forward until he stood before the throne. His crew stayed behind him, close together, ready for anything. So, the Emperor said. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. You are the human who defeated my daughter. Jake bowed his head slightly. I am, Your Majesty. Valdros leaned forward, studying Jake with those ancient eyes. You are smaller than I expected, softer. If I struck you right now, I could break every bone in your body with a single blow. Jake did not flinch. Probably. And yet, you beat her. You beat the finest warrior in my empire. You made her bleed in front of thousands of my people. The Emperor's voice grew louder, harder. Do you understand what you have done? Do you understand what this means? Jake met his gaze steadily. I understand that I won a fair match. Nothing more. Nothing more. Valdros laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have shattered 10,000 years of belief. You have shown my people that the Volanti are not invincible. You have planted doubt in minds that have never doubted before. And you say it is nothing? Kate took a step forward. With respect, Your Majesty, we didn't come here to cause trouble. We were captured. We were threatened. We were forced to fight. All we want is to go home. The Emperor's eyes shifted to her. Another human. Tell me, what makes your species so special? Why should I not kill all of you right now and pretend this never happened? Jake spoke before Kate could answer. Because it would not change anything. You could kill us. You could destroy our ship and erase all evidence that we were ever here. But it would not undo what happened today. Your daughter knows the truth. Your people know the truth. And the truth cannot be killed. Valdros was silent for a long moment. His face was unreadable. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the great hall like thunder. The guards and advisors looked at each other in confusion. The Emperor had not laughed in years. You are brave, Valdros said when his laughter finally stopped. Foolish, perhaps, but brave. My daughter was right. You are not what I expected. He turned to look at Zerithia, who stood to the side with her head bowed. My daughter, what do you think we should do with these humans? Zerithia raised her head. For a moment, Jake saw something in her eyes. Not hatred. Not anger. Something else. Something like curiosity. "I think we should honor the agreement," she said quietly. "They won the match fairly. They earned their freedom." Valdros nodded slowly. "And what else?" Zerethia hesitated. She looked at Jake, then back at her father. "I think we should learn from them. For 10,000 years, we have conquered and destroyed. We have never stopped to ask if there might be another way. But this human showed me something today. He showed me that strength is not always about power. Sometimes, strength is about patience, about endurance, about refusing to give up." The Emperor was silent again. The whole hall seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Valdros spoke. "When I was young, I believed that the Volanthi were the greatest species in the universe. I believed that our power made us superior to all others. But I have lived for 400 years, and I have seen many things. I have seen species that should have been weak defeat armies that should have been invincible. I have seen empires rise and fall. And I have learned that the universe is more complicated than any of us can understand." He rose from his throne, towering over Jake like a mountain. "You and your crew are free to go. Your ship will be repaired, and you will be given safe passage out of our territory. But I ask one thing of you." Jake looked up at him. "What?" "When you return to your people, tell them what happened here. Tell them that the Volanthi are not their enemies. Tell them that there is much we can learn from each other. And tell them that one small human taught an old emperor that he still has much to learn." Jake felt something loosen in his chest. It was hope. Real, genuine hope. "I will," he said. "I promise." And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Volanthi Empire took its first step toward peace. 3 days had passed since the fight in the arena. The human ship, once a broken wreck drifting through space, had been repaired by the best engineers in the Volanthi Empire. It sat now in the royal docking bay, its hull gleaming with fresh metal, its engines humming with power. Jake Harris stood at the observation window, looking out at the alien city that spread below him. Purple towers rose toward the sky. Flying vehicles moved through the air like schools of fish. Millions of Volanthi went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their world was about to change forever. Footsteps approached from behind. Jake did not turn. He already knew who was. "You are leaving soon," Princess Zerethia said, coming to stand beside him. Jake nodded. "My crew is ready. We've been away from home too long." Zerethia was quiet for a moment. Her hand, the one he had cut, was wrapped in a simple bandage. She could have had it healed instantly with their advanced technology, but she had chosen to let it heal naturally. She said she wanted to remember. "I have been thinking about what you told me," she said finally. "About how humans evolved. About persistence hunting. About chasing prey until it could not run anymore." Jake turned to look at her. "And I did not understand at first. It seemed cruel, heartless, to follow a creature for hours, watching it suffer, waiting for it to collapse." She shook her head slowly. "But then I realized something. It is not about cruelty. It is about patience. It is about understanding that some victories cannot be rushed." Jake smiled softly. "You're starting to get it. My people have always taken what we wanted by force. We saw something we desired, and we conquered it. Quick, brutal, efficient. But that approach has limits. You cannot force a species to join your empire willingly. You cannot force respect or loyalty or love." She turned to face him fully. "Your species understands something that we never learned. You understand that real strength is not about overpowering others. It is about outlasting them, about being there when the storm passes, about never, ever giving up." Jake did not know what to say. 3 days ago, this woman had tried to kill him. Now she was speaking like a philosopher, questioning everything her species had believed for 10,000 years. "What will you do now?" he asked. Zerathia looked out at the city. "I will learn. I will study your species, your history, your culture. I will try to understand how creatures so small and fragile manage to spread across an entire galaxy. And I will try to teach my people what I have learned." She paused. "It will not be easy. Many Volanthi do not want to change. They are proud and stubborn. They believe that admitting weakness is the same as being weak." "Change is never easy," Jake agreed. "But it's always possible, if you want it badly enough." Kate Murphy appeared in the doorway, her face serious. "Commander, we're ready for departure. The crew's aboard and the engines are warmed up." Jake nodded. "I'll be there in a minute." Kate hesitated, looking between Jake and the princess. Something passed across her face, curiosity maybe or concern. But she said nothing and disappeared back down the corridor. Zerathia extended her hand toward Jake. It was the same hand he had cut, the bandage slightly stained with violet blood. "In my culture, touching hands is a sign of respect between equals. I would be honored if you would accept." Jake took her hand gently. Her skin was cool and smooth, like polished stone. But her grip was strong, stronger than any human could match. He felt the power in her muscles, the potential for violence. But he also felt something else. Control, restraint, choice. "I hope we meet again," Zerathia said. "Under better circumstances, I hope so too." Jake released her hand and stepped back. "Take care of yourself, princess. The galaxy is a big place. There's a lot out there worth seeing." He turned and walked toward the docking bay. He did not look back. He knew that if he did, he might start thinking about everything that could have gone wrong. Everything that almost went wrong. And he needed to focus on the future now, not the past. The ship was waiting for him. Kate stood at the entrance, her arms crossed, a slight smile on her face. "Making friends with the enemy?" she asked. Jake shrugged. "She's not our enemy anymore. At least, I hope not." They walked inside together. The crew was already at their stations, running final checks. Danny Webb sat in the pilot's seat, his hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. Ben Collins stood by the weapons console, looking almost disappointed that he would not need to use it. "All systems green," Danny reported. "We're ready to fly whenever you give the word, Commander." Jake took his seat in the command chair. It felt strange to be back here, in the small, cramped bridge of a human ship, after spending time in the vast halls of the Volanthi Palace. Strange, but good. This was home. This was where he belonged. "Take us out, Danny. Nice and slow. Let's not give them any reason to change their minds." The ship lifted off from the docking bay and rose into the purple sky. Jake watched through the view screen as the alien city grew smaller beneath them. The tower shrank to the size of fingers, then needles, then nothing at all. In minutes, they had left the atmosphere behind. The stars stretched out before them, endless and eternal. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of the Volanthi Empire, was Earth, was home, was everything they had been fighting to return to. Kate sat down beside Jake, letting out a long breath. "I still can't believe we made it. I kept waiting for something to go wrong." "Something always goes wrong," Jake said. "The trick is not letting it stop you." She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you really think they'll change? The Volanthi? Do you think they'll give up conquering and start cooperating?" Jake thought about Zerathia, about the look in her eyes when she finally understood, about the way she had surrendered, not in defeat, but in acceptance. "I think some of them will," he said. "And that's a start. Change doesn't happen all at once. It happens one person at a time, one choice at a time. Today, we changed one princess. Tomorrow, Maybe she'll change 1,000 more. Ben Collins laughed from his station. Leave it to humans to go out exploring and end up starting a revolution. Jake smiled. That's what we do. We go places we're not supposed to go. We do things we're not supposed to do. And somehow, against all odds, we survive. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the Volanti home world far behind. The stars blurred into lines of light, and Jake allowed himself to relax for the first time in weeks. They were going home. All of them. Alive and free. And somewhere behind them, in a palace made of purple stone, a young princess was beginning to question everything her people had ever believed. She was beginning to see the universe not as something to conquer, but as something to explore. Not as something to fear, but as something to understand. One human had done this. One small, soft, fragile human who refused to die when he was supposed to. And as Jake Harris closed his eyes and let sleep take him, he smiled, because that was what humans did. They changed the galaxy, one impossible victory at a time.